The gun gleamed under the chandelier light. Ada's hand froze on the door handle of Suite 3000, her cleaning cart blocking her only escape route. 3 men in expensive suits surrounded a fourth who knelt on the marble floor, blood trickling from his split lip. But it was the man holding the gun who made her breath catch. His face was carved from ice, dark eyes empty of mercy, his finger resting too casually on the trigger. "Please," the kneeling man begged in Korean. "I can get you the money. Just give me 1 more week." The gunman tilted his head, a predator considering wounded prey. "You've had 3 weeks, Mr. Park. My patience has limits." That's when his gaze shifted. Those cold eyes found Ada standing frozen in the doorway, her heart hammering so loud she was certain everyone could hear it. Time crystallized into a single moment where she could run, scream, or do something monumentally stupid. "Do you need fresh towels?" The words left her mouth before her brain caught up. The room went silent. Even the bleeding man stopped whimpering. The gunman's eyes narrowed, studying her with the intensity of someone deciding whether she was brave or foolish. Probably both. "Close the door," he said in perfect English, his voice smooth as silk over steel. Now, Ada's training at the Peninsula Grand Hotel hadn't covered this scenario. How to handle difficult guests, yes. What to do when you walk in on what was clearly a mafia execution. The employee handbook had been disappointingly silent on that topic. But something in her refused to show fear. Maybe it was exhaustion from working double shifts. Maybe it was a thought of her siblings back in Nigeria, counting on her paycheck. Or maybe she was just tired of powerful men thinking they could intimidate everyone. She stepped inside and let the door click shut behind her, leaving her cart in the hallway. "I'm sorry for the interruption. I was told this suite was empty." The gunman lowered his weapon slightly, his expression shifting from lethal to curious. "What's your name?" "Ada. I work housekeeping on the penthouse floor." "Ada," he repeated, tasting her name like expensive wine. "You're not afraid?" "I'm terrified," she admitted, meeting his stare. "But screaming won't help me, and you're going to do whatever you came here to do regardless of whether I panic about it. So I'd rather keep my dignity intact." One of the other men laughed nervously, but the gunman raised his hand, silencing him instantly. He stepped closer to Ada, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Smart girl. But smart girls know and forget what they've seen. He reached into his jacket, and Ada's heart lurched, but he only pulled out a thick stack of bills. "For your discretion." Ada looked at the money, then back at his face. "I clean rooms. What guests do in them isn't my business. You don't need to pay me to mind my own affairs." His eyebrows rose a fraction, the first genuine emotion breaking through that icy mask. "Everyone has a price." "Not everyone." She gestured to the bleeding man on the floor. "Is it going to die?" "That depends on his choices over the next week. Then I suggest you let him make better ones. The presidential suite down the hall just checked out. Nobody's on that floor tonight. Less chance of more housekeepers interrupting your meeting." She didn't know why she was helping him. Maybe because the man on the floor was still breathing, which meant there was still a chance this didn't end in murder. Maybe because something in those cold eyes sparked recognition in her soul, like seeing your reflection in dark water. The gunman studied her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but his lips curved with something that might have been amusement. "What's your employee number?" "Why?" "Answer the question." "P7432. He pulled out his phone and typed something. "You'll be assigned to the presidential and penthouse floors exclusively from now on. Night shift. You'll service my suite specifically. I don't think that's how hotel staffing works." "It is now. I own this hotel. Ada, among other things." He slipped his gun back into his shoulder holster with practiced ease. "You're dismissed. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow night. 10 p.m. My suite. Come alone." It wasn't a request. Ada nodded once and turned to leave, her legs somehow still steady despite everything. As her hand touched the door handle, his voice stopped her. "Ada!" She glanced back. His expression had returned to that cold mask, but something flickered behind it. "You interest me." Very few things do anymore. Don't disappoint me by telling anyone what you saw tonight. And if I do, then you'll discover that fear you're hiding so well." His tone carried no threat, just simple certainty. "But I don't think you will. You're not like other people, are you?" She should have been angry at his presumption, at his arrogance, at the casual way he wielded power over everyone around him. Instead, she found herself asking, "Neither are you. Were you always as cold?" The question hung in the air between them, dangerous and intimate. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and for a heartbeat, she saw something raw flash across his face before the mask slammed back into place. "Good night, Ada." She left without another word, her hands trembling only after the door closed behind her. She pushed her cart down the empty corridor, her mind racing. She should quit. She should report this to... Who? The police? If he owned the hotel, he probably owned them too. She should run back to Nigeria and never look back. But she wouldn't. She needed this job. Her sister Chioma was counting on her tuition payments. Her brother Emeka needed his school supplies. Their grandmother's medication wasn't going to pay for itself. So Ada would show up tomorrow night at 10 p.m., and she'd face whatever came next with the same dignity she'd shown tonight. Hi, friends. Welcome back to another tale of Mafia romance that will keep you glued to your screen. Kindly show appreciation by hitting the like and subscribe button, as it would be of encouragement to me. Because what happens next? Well, that's where things get really complicated. Ada made it to the staff locker room before her legs finally gave out. She sank onto the bench, pressing her palms against her eyes, trying to slow her racing heart. What had she just done? She walked into a crime scene and somehow walked back out alive. And worse, she'd been intrigued by the man holding the gun. Long night. Her co-worker Blessing appeared from around the lockers, already changed into her street clothes. Ada managed a weak smile. "You have no idea. How was your shift?" "Boring. Some businessman complained about the thread count on his sheets." "Can you imagine? The sheets are Egyptian cotton, but apparently not Egyptian enough." Blessing rolled her eyes, grabbing her purse. "You look exhausted. Sure you don't want to grab food before heading home?" "Rain check? I just want to sleep for a week." "Fair enough. See you tomorrow night, yeah." The next evening arrived too quickly. Ada checked her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror, smoothing down her uniform and pulling her braids into a neat bun. Her hands were steady now, but her stomach twisted with anticipation. She didn't want to examine too closely. At exactly 10 p.m., she stood outside the penthouse suite, her master key card suddenly feeling very heavy in her pocket. She knocked. "Come in." He sat in a leather armchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Lego skyline glittering behind him like scattered diamonds. He'd shed the jacket and gun holster, wearing only black slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. More dangerous somehow without the weapon, all lean muscle and contained power. A bottle of wine and 2 glasses sat on the table beside him. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. "You commanded it. I assumed refusing would be bad for my health." "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. "We're going to talk." Ada remained standing. "With respect, I prefer to keep this professional. I'm here to clean your suite, not socialize. The suite is already clean. My men took care of it." He poured wine into both glasses, his movements precise and controlled. "Sit down, Ada. Please." The please caught her off guard. She lowered herself into the chair, perching on its edge, ready to bolt if necessary. He offered her a glass, and she took it but didn't drink. "You're wondering who I am," he said, swirling the wine in his own glass. "I know who you are. Kang Min-ho, Korean national. Checked in 3 weeks ago. You've extended your stay 4 times. You order room service at odd hours, and you never leave the suite during the day." She met his startled gaze. "I pay attention." Clearly, something that might have been respect crossed his features. "And what else do you know?" "That you're dangerous. That people fear you. That whatever business you're conducting in Lagos isn't the legal kind." She set her glass down untouched. "And that I should stay as far away from you as possible. Yet here you are." You can give me a choice. There's always a choice, Ada. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying her with those unsettling dark eyes. You could have quit, could have called in sick, could have sent another maid in your place. But you came yourself right on time. Why? Because she thought about nothing else for 24 hours. Because something in his face last night, that flash of raw humanity behind a cold mask, had haunted her dreams. Because she was apparently an idiot with a death wish. Because I don't run from things that scare me, she said instead. Brave or foolish. I haven't decided which yet. He sipped his wine, never breaking eye contact. Tell me about yourself. The real version, not the employee file I read. You read my file? I told you you interest me. 26 years old, Nigerian citizen. Been working here for 8 months. Sending most of your paycheck back home to family in Enugu. Top marks from your supervisors. Never late, never complains, keeps to herself. He tilted his head. But those are just facts. I want to know who you are. Ada's jaw tightened. You don't get to know that. You're not my friend, Mr. Kong. You're a guest who happened to have me assigned to his floor. Nothing more. Min-ho. Excuse me. Call me Min-ho. Mr. Kong was my father and he's dead. Something cold flickered through his expression. And you're right. I'm not your friend. Friends don't exist in my world. Only assets, liabilities, and people too insignificant to matter. Which am I? I haven't decided that either. He stood abruptly, moving to the window, his back to her. You should know what you're dealing with, Ada. I run an organization that operates in 7 countries. We handle acquisitions, negotiations, and removals. I've killed 6 men personally. Ordered the deaths of countless others. I use people like tools and discard them when they break. He turned to face her, his expression carved from stone. I'm telling you this so you understand. There's no redemption arc here. No secret heart of gold. I am exactly what I appear to be. Then why tell me? Why not just threaten me into silence and be done with it? Because... He paused, and for a moment he looked lost. Because when you asked if I'd always been this cold, no one has asked me that in 15 years. Everyone else assumes this is all I am, all I've ever been. Ada's chest tightened with an emotion she didn't want to name. She stood, moving closer but maintaining careful distance. Were you? No. The word came out raw, scraped from somewhere deep. Once I was a kid who wanted to be a doctor, who loved his mother and believed in doing the right thing, who thought the world was fundamentally good. His laugh was bitter. That boy died the same night his mother did. What's left is just this. I don't believe that. His eyes snapped to hers, sharp and angry. You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't kill that man last night. I know you let me walk out of here alive, when anyone else in your position would have eliminated the witness. I know you said please when asking me to sit. She took a breath, knowing she was stepping off a cliff, but unable to stop. I know that mask you wear cracks sometimes, and underneath it is someone who's tired of being cold. The silence stretched between them, charged and dangerous. Min-ho crossed the distance in 2 strides, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. This close. She could see the exhaustion carved into the lines of his face, the shadows of sleepless nights, the burden of whatever demons drove him. You should be afraid of me, he said quietly. Maybe, but I'm more afraid of becoming someone who plays it safe forever, who never takes a chance, who lives and dies without ever really living. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Aren't you tired, Min-ho? Of pretending to be something you hate? His hand rose, fingertips barely grazing her cheek, and she felt him tremble. What are you doing to me? Nothing you're not doing to yourself. He pulled back abruptly, running a hand through his dark hair. Composure fracturing. You need to leave. Now. Why? Because I'm trying very hard to be the monster I promised you I was, and you're making it impossible. His voice carried an edge of desperation. Leave, Ada, before I do something we'll both regret. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. Because in his eyes she saw the same terrifying recognition she'd felt last night. The sense of two souls who wandered too long in darkness, suddenly seeing light reflected in each other. What if I don't want to leave? Then you're a fool. But he didn't sound angry anymore. He sounded lost. Probably. She picked up the wine glass she'd abandoned and took a slow sip, watching him over the rim. But I've never been accused of making smart choices when it comes to complicated men. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. This is a mistake. Most interesting things are. He stared at her for a long moment, then moved back to his chair, gesturing for her to resume her seat. Stay. Talk to me. Just talk. So she did. They talked until 3 a.m, about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Enugu, about her mother who died when she was 12, about the weight of being the eldest sibling and sole provider. He told her fragments of his story, carefully edited but real, about soul and violence, and the father who'd beaten the softness out of him years before a rival gang put bullets in him. The nights became their ritual. Every evening at 10 p.m., Ada would knock on his door, and they'd talk until dawn painted the Lego sky pink. Min-ho never touched her beyond accidental brushes of fingers when passing drinks, never made advances despite the tension that built between them like pressure before a storm. He was careful, controlled, maintaining rigid boundaries even as his eyes tracked her every movement with hunger he couldn't quite hide. During the days, she'd sleep a few hours, then lie awake thinking about him. It was madness. He'd told her explicitly what he was, shown her the monster beneath the expensive suits. But she kept returning, drawn by something deeper than attraction, something that felt inevitable and terrifying. 2 weeks into their nocturnal conversations, everything changed. Ada arrived at his suite to find the door ajar, voices raised inside. She pushed it open carefully and found Min-ho facing 3 men, all Korean, all wearing the same cold expression she'd seen on him that first night. This has gone on long enough, the eldest man said in Korean. Ada's grasp of the language was limited, but she understood the anger in his tone. You're distracted. Soft. This is about the girl, isn't it? My personal affairs are none of your concern. Sung-hoon. Min-ho's voice could have frozen fire. They are when they interfere with business. We're here to finalize the Lagos expansion, not so you can play house with some hotel maid. Sung-hoon's lip curled with disgust. End it. Now, or we will. Ada stepped fully into the room, drawing all eyes to her. I'm sorry. I can come back later. Min-ho's expression shifted through several emotions too quickly to name, landing on resignation. No. Stay. He switched to English. Gentlemen, this is Ada. Ada, my associates from Seoul. The maid. Sung-hoon looked her up and down like inspecting livestock. You're the distraction. I expected someone more impressive. And I expected basic manners, but we're both disappointed. Ada set her jaw. Min-ho, I'll wait outside. She a spirit. Another man laughed. I can see the appeal. But seriously, Min-ho, this needs to stop. She's a liability. She's mine. The words came out sharp as broken glass. And none of you will touch her. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Sung-hoon stepped forward, his hand moving toward his jacket, where Ada suspected a weapon was holstered. Are you forgetting who you're speaking to? I'm still senior to you in the organization. Then consider this my resignation. Min-ho moved between Sung-hoon and Ada, his body language radiating threat. I'm done. You don't get to just walk away from this life. You know too much. Try to stop me. The tension snapped like a broken wire. Sung-hoon drew his gun, and Min-ho's hand shot out, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting. The weapon clattered to the floor. Ada watched, frozen, as Min-ho moved with brutal efficiency, years of training evident in every strike. Within seconds, all 3 men were on the ground, groaning. Min-ho picked up the gun, checked the chamber, and emptied the bullets onto the carpet. Get out. Tell the bosses back in Seoul I'm finished. If they send anyone after me or Ada, I'll burn the entire organization to the ground. They know I can do it. Sung-hoon struggled to his feet, clutching his ribs. You'll regret this. They'll come for you both. Let them try. The 3 men limped out, throwing dark looks back at Ada. When the door closed, the silence felt deafening. Min-ho stood there, chest heaving, his carefully maintained control shattered. "Are you insane?" Ada's voice came out higher than intended. "You just gave up everything because they insulted me?" "No." He turned to face her, and the rawness in his eyes stole her breath. "I gave up everything because pretending I could keep you at arm's length was killing me. Because I've spent 15 years being someone I hate, and then you walked into my life and reminded me there was another way to exist." "Min-ho, I'm in love with you." The confession landed between them like a grenade. "I know it's insane. I know it's only been 2 weeks. I know I'm the last person you should trust. But I can't pretend anymore, Ada. You've ruined me for the cold, and I don't want it back." Ada's heart hammered, so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. "They'll kill you. They'll kill both of us." "Then we run. Tonight. Right now. I have money hidden that the organization doesn't know about. Enough to disappear completely. To start over somewhere safe." He crossed to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I'm not promising you an easy life. I'm not promising you safety. But I'm promising you the truth. You're the first real thing I felt in 15 years, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you if you'll let me." "This is crazy," she whispered. "Completely." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, catching a tear she hadn't realized fell. "Say no. Please, say no. Save yourself from this disaster." But she couldn't. She'd felt it too, this impossible connection that defied logic and common sense. She'd fallen in love with a man who'd shown her his worst parts and trusted her not to run, who'd chosen her over everything he'd built, every scrap of power and security he'd accumulated. "I must be out of my mind," she breathed. "But yes, yes." His kiss was inevitable, desperate, carrying 15 years of loneliness and 2 weeks of restraint. Ada melted into it, her hands fisting his shirt, pulling him closer. He kissed like a drowning man finding air, like someone who'd forgotten how to feel and was remembering all at once. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "We have to move fast. Pack only what you can carry in one bag. Don't tell anyone where you're going. My family, I need to make sure they're taken care of." "Already done." He pulled back, cupping her face. "I set up an account in your sister's name. Enough to cover their expenses for years. They'll never want for anything." "When did you do that?" "Last week. I knew this was coming. Ada, I knew I'd eventually have to choose between that life and you. So I've been preparing." His smile was crooked, almost shy. "I've been planning our escape since the moment you asked if I'd always been cold." Love and fear warred in her chest. "What if they find us? Then we'll face it together. But I have contingencies. Places they don't know about. Identities they can't trace." His hands tightened on her shoulders. "I can't promise perfect safety, but I can promise I'll protect you with everything I have." "And what about you? Who protects you?" The question seemed to surprise him. "I don't need." "Yes, you do." She covered his hands with hers. "You've spent your whole life being protector, the weapon, the monster. Let me be the person who stands between you and the darkness for once." Something in his expression cracked open, and she saw the boy he'd been, the one who'd want to be a doctor and save lives instead of taking them. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck, and she felt his shoulders shake with the weight of emotions he'd locked away for too long. "I don't deserve you," he murmured against her skin. "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." They held each other as the Lagos night deepened outside the windows. Two people who'd found each other against all odds and logic. In the morning, they'd run. But for now, they had this moment, this fragile perfect now. They ran. Min-ho had everything organized with the precision of someone who'd spent years planning operations. Fake passports, untraceable cash, a private car waiting in the hotel's underground garage. They drove through the night, leaving Lagos behind, heading for a coastal village Min-ho knew where questions weren't asked if you paid enough. The safe house was a simple cottage overlooking the ocean, whitewashed walls and blue shutters, the kind of place that existed outside of time. Ada stood on the porch that first morning, watching sunrise paint the water gold, and felt the unreality of the past 48 hours crash over her. Regrets. Min-ho's voice came from behind her, tentative in a way she'd never heard. Terrified, but no regrets. She turned to face him, this man who'd upended both their lives. In the soft morning light, without the expensive suits and cold mask, he looked younger, vulnerable. What happens now? Now we figure out how to be normal people. He smiled, but worry creased his forehead. I've never been normal. Ada, I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, but we'll learn together. She reached for his hand, threading their fingers together. Tell me something true, something you've never told anyone. He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. I'm afraid, he finally said, not of them finding us. I'm afraid I'll wake up one day and realize I've destroyed your life, that you'll look at me and see the monster I really am, and you'll hate yourself for staying. Min-ho! She squeezed his hand. Look at me. When he did, she saw the fear naked in his eyes. I'm not some innocent who stumbled into your world blind. I chose this with my eyes open. I chose you knowing exactly what you've done, what you are, and I'm choosing you again right now. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen you trying so hard to be cold and failing. Because you gave up everything rather than let them hurt me. Because when you hold me, your hands shake like you're afraid I'll break. She stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching. You're not the monster, Min-ho. The monster is what they tried to make you. But you kept a piece of yourself hidden away all these years, waiting for a reason to be human again. He kissed her then, soft and searching, like he was trying to believe her through touch. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Teach me how to be the person you see when you look at me. So they began the slow work of building a life from ruins. Min-ho took a job at the local dock, manual labor that left his hands calloused and his shoulders tired but his eyes clearer. Ada worked at the village school, teaching English to children who looked at her with wonder and curiosity. They were nobody special, just another couple in a small town, and it was the most terrifying thing Min-ho had ever done. I don't know how to do this, he confessed one night, 3 months in. They were cooking dinner together, something absurdly domestic, and he'd frozen with a knife in his hand, staring at vegetables like they were enemy combatants. How do you just live? Without always calculating threats, without planning 6 moves ahead. Ada took the knife gently from his hand and set it down. You breathe. You exist in this moment instead of the next one. You let yourself be okay. I don't know if I can. You're doing it right now. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, feeling the tension in his back slowly ease. Every day you wake up and choose to be here, to be human, to be kind. That's how you do it, one breath at a time. He turned in her arms, cupping her face with hands that had once held weapons and now held only her. I love you. I don't say it enough. I love you so much it physically hurts sometimes. I love you too. She kissed him softly. The you who's learning to laugh. The you who brings me flowers from the market. The you who has nightmares and lets me hold you until they pass. All of you. Their life settled into a rhythm. Mornings on the beach, evenings cooking together, nights tangled in each other's arms. Min-ho's nightmares came less frequently. His shoulders lost some of their permanent tension. He smiled more, the kind of real smiles that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. But peace was a fragile thing. 6 months into their new life, Ada came home from school to find Min-ho standing rigid at the window, his body language screaming danger. Her heart stopped. They found us, she asked quietly. Not yet, but there's been activity. Inquiries. Someone's looking. He turned to face her, and the cold mask she hadn't seen in months flickered across his features before he pushed it away. We might need to move again. How long do we have? A week. Maybe 2 if we're lucky. Ada's hands clenched into fists. She'd known this was possible, had prepared herself for it mentally, but the reality of leaving the life they'd built, the peace they'd found, made fury rise in her chest. No. Ada. No. She crossed him, fire in her eyes. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of them deciding our lives for us. We've done nothing wrong. We're not hurting anyone. We just want to exist in peace. It's not about right or wrong. It's about survival. Then we fight. The word surprised even her. You said you'd burn the organization to the ground if they came after us. So let's do it. Min-ho stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You have no idea what you're suggesting. Then explain it to me. She grabbed his hands, holding tight. Tell me what it would take to end this permanently, to make them leave us alone for good. He pulled away, running both hands through his hair, agitation clear in every line of his body. The only way they'd stop is if I exposed everything. Every operation, every illegal deal, every person in the organization's pocket. I'd have to turn state's evidence, give up information that would dismantle a criminal empire 3 generations old. So do it. Ada, that's a death sentence. Even in witness protection, they'd find us eventually. The organization has resources beyond what you can imagine. But without the organization backing them, they'd just be individual people seeking revenge. Easier to handle than a coordinated effort. She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. You told me once that you were tired being cold. Prove it. Do something hot-blooded and reckless. Fight back. You're asking me to declare war. I'm asking you to choose freedom over fear. She cupped his face, thumbs brushing across his sharp cheekbones. I didn't fall in love with you so we could spend our lives running and hiding. I fell in love with a man brave enough to walk away from power for something real. Be that brave again. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like it was the only thing anchoring him to earth. If we do this, there's no going back. They'll come for us with everything they have. Then we'd better be ready. When he opened his eyes again, something fierce burned there. Something that looked like hope tempered with determination. You're insane. I learned from the best. Planning their war took 3 weeks. Min-ho pulled out every contact he'd kept secret, every piece of insurance he'd hidden over the years. Turned out that 15 years in a criminal organization taught you exactly where the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. He had files, recordings, evidence that could put away dozens of corrupt officials, police officers, and business leaders. This is impressive, Ada said, staring at the laptop screen filled with documents. And terrifying. Why did you keep all this? Insurance. Min-ho sat beside her, his shoulder pressed against hers, grounding himself with the contact. I've seen what happens to people who trust the organization completely. They end up dead when they're no longer useful. I wanted leverage in case I ever needed to disappear. His lips quirked in a dark smile. I just never thought I'd have a reason to use it until you. So what's the plan? I make contact with Interpol. Offer them everything in exchange for full immunity and witness protection. They've been trying to crack this organization for years. This information would be their holy grail. He pulled up another file. But there's a window between when I hand it over and when arrests happen. That's when we're most vulnerable. How do we handle that? We don't run. We make ourselves too public to kill quietly. He turned to look at her, something like admiration in his eyes. You were right. Going on the offensive is our best option. We leak enough information to the press to cause chaos. Make ourselves a story, then hand over full evidence to authorities. By the time the organization realizes what we've done, we'll be too visible to eliminate without drawing more attention. Ada felt her pulse quicken. When do we start? Tomorrow. I've already reached out to a journalist who's been investigating Korean organized crime. She's hungry for this story. He closed the laptop and pulled Ada into his lap, needing her close. Last chance to back out. Say the word and we disappear. New identities, new continent, we never look back. She twisted to face him, straddling his thighs, her hands on his shoulders. Do you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder? No. Then we end this. She kissed him hard, pouring everything she felt into it. Love and fear and determination. Together. No more running. He held her like she might disappear, his face buried in her neck, breathing her in. You've made me so soft. Good. You needed it. The next morning, they met the journalist Kim Sun-hee in a cafe in Lagos. She was sharp-eyed and skeptical until Min-ho started laying out proof. Her hands actually shook as she scrolled through documents on his encrypted drive. This is going to explode everything, she whispered. I'll need time to verify sources, to build the story properly. You have 72 hours, Min-ho said flatly. After that, it goes public whether you're ready or not. I'm offering you the exclusive because you've been credible in your reporting. But this can't wait. Sun-hee nodded, her journalist instincts clearly at war with her desire for thoroughness. I'll make it work, but you both need to go somewhere safe. When this breaks, every criminal organization in Asia is going to want you dead. We have a plan, Ada assured her. The plan involved a live television interview, going public with their story before the expose dropped. It was insane and dangerous, and exactly the kind of move no one would expect from someone trying to stay hidden. Min-ho spent hours coaching Ada on what to say, how to handle hostile questions, how to stay calm under pressure. You don't have to do this part, he told her the night before the interview. I can go alone. And let you take all the heat? Not a chance. She squeezed his hand. Besides, I'm not just your girlfriend who got caught up in this. I'm the woman who chose to fight back. That distinction matters. The interview was scheduled for prime time on a major news network. They sat in the studio chairs, Min-ho's hand finding Ada's under the table, their fingers laced together. The interviewer, a woman named Rachel with perfect hair and shark eyes, wasted no time. Mr. Kang, you're admitting on live television that you were a high-ranking member of the Korean Mafia. Aren't you afraid of the consequences? I've been afraid my entire life, Min-ho replied, his voice steady. I'm tired of it. Yes, I was part of a criminal organization. Yes, I've done terrible things. But I'm here to make that right, to expose an empire built on violence and corruption. And Miss Ada, you're involved with self-admitted criminal. Some would say you're an accomplice. Ada lifted her chin. Some would be wrong. I'm a woman who fell in love with a man trying to become better than his past. There's no crime in that. And I'm here because I believe people deserve the truth about how deep this corruption runs. The expose releases tomorrow, Rachel continued. You both know that puts targets on your backs. Why not just disappear? Min-ho's hand tightened on Ada's. Because disappearing is still letting them win. They want people to be afraid, to stay silent, to accept that this is just how the world works. We're saying no. We're saying that even people who've done wrong can choose to do right. That love is worth fighting for. That freedom matters more than safety. That's very noble. It's also potentially suicidal. Maybe. Ada spoke up. But what kind of life is it? Always hiding, always afraid. We'd rather fight for the chance to live openly than die slowly in the shadows. The interview went viral within hours. By the next morning, when Sunny's expose dropped, it was the biggest story in international news. Arrests began immediately. Government officials, police chiefs, business executives, all taken into custody based on the evidence Min-ho provided. The organization scrambled, trying to contain the damage, but it was too late. The empire was crumbling. But empires don't fall quietly. The attack came on the third day. Ada was at the safe house they'd moved to, a fortified apartment in the city with private security. Min-ho had gone to meet with Interpol officials. She was checking her phone, reading messages of support that had flooded in, when she heard the first gunshot. Training Min-ho had drilled into her kicked in. She dropped to the floor, crawling toward the panic room he'd insisted on installing. But the door burst open before she reached it, and two men in masks entered, guns drawn. "Where's Kang?" one demanded in Korean. "Not here," Ada replied in English, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You're too late. Everything's already public. Killing us won't change anything." "Maybe not, but it'll feel good." The gun swung toward her, and Ada closed her eyes, thinking of Min-ho, hoping he'd forgive himself for not being there, hoping he'd find a way to keep living after. The shot never came. Instead, she heard a crash, shouting, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. When she opened her eyes, Min-ho stood over the two attackers, both unconscious, his chest heaving with rage and fear. "Ada!" He crossed her in 2 strides, pulling her up and into his arms, checking her frantically for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" I'm okay. She clung to him, shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "How did you know?" "I had surveillance on this place. The second they breached, I was notified. I broke every traffic law getting here." He pulled back, cupping her face, his eyes wild. "I thought I'd lost you. I thought I'd be too late." "You weren't. You saved me." "I almost didn't." His voice broke. "This was a mistake. We should have run. I should have protected you better." "Stop." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "We made this choice together. We knew the risks. And we're still alive, Min-ho. We're still fighting." Sirens wailed outside. The security team had called the police. More arrests would follow. But as Min-ho held Ada in that destroyed safe house, surrounded by evidence of how close they'd come to losing everything, he made a silent promise. He'd spend the rest of his life making sure she never regretted choosing him. The trial took 6 months. Min-ho testified against everyone, laying bare the organization's operations with the kind of detail that could only come from the inside. His immunity deal held, but the public opinion was divided. Some call him a hero for coming forward. Others said he should rot in prison for his past crimes regardless of his cooperation. Ada sat in the courtroom every day, a visible reminder of why he was doing this. When the pressure got too intense, when hostile lawyers tried to break him on the stand, he'd look at her, and her steady presence would anchor him. "Do you regret your past actions, Mr. Kang?" the prosecutor asked during one particularly brutal cross-examination. "Every day," Min-ho replied honestly. "I can't undo what I've done. I can't bring back the people who were hurt because of me. All I can do is try to prevent the same thing happening to others. If that means reliving every terrible choice I've made in public, if it means spending the rest of my life trying to atone, then that's what I'll do. And you expect us to believe this transformation is real? That love changed you." The skepticism dripped from the lawyer's voice. Min-ho looked directly at Ada. "I don't expect you to believe anything. But yes, love changed me. It reminded me that I was human, that I could choose to be better. Ada didn't save me. I had to save myself. But she gave me a reason to want to." The testimony made headlines. The prosecution's case was airtight. Convictions came down like dominoes. The organization that had operated for 3 generations was effectively destroyed, its leaders facing life sentences, its networks dismantled. But the threats didn't stop immediately. For months, Ada and Min-ho lived under constant security, moving between safe houses, never fully able to relax. The stress wore on them both. They argued more, small fights that were really about fear and exhaustion. "I can't do this anymore," Ada confessed one night after a particularly bad fight about something trivial. She sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. God, I love you so much. But I'm tired, Min-ho. I'm tired of being afraid, of looking over my shoulder, of wondering if today's the day someone gets through security." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "I know. I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Stop apologizing. I chose this, remember? You chose me. You didn't choose this endless nightmare." He pressed his forehead to their joined hands. "Tell me what you need. Tell me how to fix this. I need normal. I need boring. I need to wake up in the same bed for more than a week without having to pack everything into a go bag." She laughed bitterly. "I need to feel like a person again instead of a target. Then that's what we'll do." He looked up at her, determination replacing despair. "The trials are done. The organization is broken. We've done everything they've asked. It's time to claim the life we fought for. It took another 3 months to arrange, but they finally got it. A small house in a coastal village, different from the first one, but similar in spirit. Real identities this time, fully legal with Interpol's blessing. Min-ho's past was public knowledge, but here, in this quiet place, people judged him by his present actions. He worked. Real work. Honest work. He helped at the local community center, teaching self-defense to women and kids. Ada opened a small library, filling it with books she'd always wanted to share. They got a dog, a scruffy mutt named Lucky who slept between them at night and barked at seagulls during the day. Is this what happy feels like? Min-ho asked one evening. They were on their porch, watching sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. His arm was around Ada, her head on his shoulder, Lucky snoring at their feet. I think so. Ada tilted her head to look at him. The lines of tension that had carved themselves into his face over the months were finally easing. He smiled more readily now, laughed at Lucky's antics, touched it with casual affection instead of desperate need. Are you happy? I didn't think I was capable of it. He kissed the top of her head. But yes, impossibly, against all logic and probability, I'm happy. 3 months later, Ada started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, she blamed it on something she ate. But when the nausea persisted, accompanied by exhaustion and strange cravings, she took a test. She stared at the positive result for a full minute, emotions warring inside her. Joy, terror, wonder, fear. She found Min-ho in the garden, planting tomatoes with the intensity he brought to everything he did. We need to talk, she said. He looked up, instantly alert. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think so. She handed him the test. We're having a baby. He stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. A baby? Yes, we're having a baby. He repeated it, testing the words. Then suddenly his face transformed, that rare full smile breaking across his features like sunrise. He laughed, actually laughed, and swept her into his arms, spinning her around. We're having a baby. Min-ho, you'll make me dizzy. He set her down carefully, immediately apologetic. Sorry, are you okay? Do you need to sit down? Should you be standing? What do pregnant women need? I need you to breathe. I'm pregnant, not made of glass. But his hands were shaking as he cupped her still flat stomach, reverence in his touch. There's a person in there. A tiny person we made. Are you scared? She asked quietly. Terrified. What if I'm a terrible father? What if I messed him up the way I was messed up? His eyes met hers, vulnerable and afraid. What if they grow up and hate me for what I used to be? Then we'll deal with it together. But Min-ho, you're not that person anymore. You haven't been for a long time. She covered his hands with hers. You're the man who plants tomato gardens and teaches self-defense to survivors and cries during sad movies. That's the father our child will know. I want to deserve this, he whispered. Deserve you, deserve them. Deserve this life we've built. You already do. Every day you wake up and choose to be better than your past, you deserve it more. The months passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and nursery preparations. Min-ho read every parenting book he could find, approached fatherhood with the same intensity he'd once brought to criminal operations. He talked to Ada's belly every night, telling their unborn child stories about their mother's bravery, promising to protect them, to be better than his own father had been. When their daughter was born on a spring morning, Min-ho held her with shaking hands and cried. Not sad tears or scared tears, but the tears of someone who'd been given a second chance at life and couldn't quite believe it was real. She's perfect, he breathed, staring at the tiny face, the small fingers that wrapped around his thumb. She's absolutely perfect. What should we name her? Ada asked from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. Min-ho thought for a moment. Hope. Her name is Hope. Because that's what she represented. Hope for the future. Hope that the cycle of violence could be broken. Hope that love really could transform even the coldest heart. They brought Hope home to their little house by the ocean. Lucky sniffed the baby curiously and appointed himself her guardian, sleeping by her crib every night. Min-ho learned to change diapers and mix formula and function on 3 hours of sleep. He was patient and gentle and constantly amazed that this tiny person trusted him completely. One night, 6 months after Hope was born, Ada found Min-ho standing over the crib, just watching their daughter sleep. Can't sleep? She asked softly. I don't want to miss anything. He reached out, gently touching Hope's soft hair. Sometimes I wake up convinced this is all a dream, that I'm still in Seoul, still cold, still alone. That you and hope are just fantasies my brain created to cope with emptiness. Ada moved beside him, leaning her head on his shoulder. Not a dream. Real. All of this is real. I killed people, Ada. I did terrible things. How do I deserve this much happiness? Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's about choosing. You chose to change. You chose to fight for something better. You chose love over power. She turned to face him. And now you get to choose to let yourself be happy. That's the final step, Min-ho. Forgiving yourself. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled her close, one arm around her, the other resting on the crib rail. Their family complete. I love you. I don't say it enough, but I love you so much. I love you too. The old you, the new you, all the versions in between. In the crib, hope stirred inside, perfectly content. Outside, waves crashed against the shore, endless and eternal. And in that small house, 3 people who'd found each other against impossible odds slept peacefully, no longer running, no longer afraid, just living, just being, just free.